Looks like it's 6 o'clock here on the West Coast, here at Santa Barbara at the airport. It is May 21st, 2025, and here's our May meeting this lovely evening. The sun is shining, and this time I'd like to turn it over to Mo. Mo, will you do the honor of a roll call for us?
Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Miller and Greg are both excused, so Commissioner Houghton.
Here.
Commissioner Bowen.
Here.
Commissioner Grabman.
Here.
Vice Chair Maya.
Here.
And Chair Glazier.
Here.
Okay. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Any changes at this time to the agenda? Director Hastert.
No changes to the agenda, Chair Glazer.
Very good. Moving on to number 2, notices that on May 15th, 2025 at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the airport administration. At this time, do we have any speaker slips? We do, right? We have one. Sean, is this you? Okay. I don't know this was on the agenda. Noise? Speak now. Okay. You want to come on up? Thank you, Sean.
So as you guys know, I'm the owner of Above All Aviation. And as of recent, starting in July of last year, going up to Friday night, we've been getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of unknown phone calls from somebody who lives in Rancho Goleta, to the point where they're harassing my employees, finding out personal information about them. And so I'm going to play a couple of their unknown things, and hopefully you can hear them. But this is what we're dealing with. We are not the only flight school. We're not the only people flying at night. As you all know, this is a very popular destination for cross-country flights when you're a student. But we are getting harassed. My husband, Mr. Hastert, has gotten a few on our behalf. My employee has picked up public information, private information about the employee, and has blasted that out. So I'm going to play some of these and let you understand what we're going through. And to the person who is doing this, please stop by. We'll show you the pattern in the simulator. We'll give you some idea of why we have to fly the way we do fly. Instead, please leave my employees alone. They don't deserve this. So here we go. Let's hope it goes. Sorry.
Your flight instructor certificate expires August 30th of this year.
That's one, so he knows that about him, and he knows where he lives, too.
Please call whichever pilot is flying tonight and tell them to quit flying over Rancho Goleta as low as they are. They're waking kids up and they're making dogs bark. You got about 80 residents from this community who are coming to the Airport Commission this week.
It's the last time.
That one was spooky. It literally said, "It's the last time."
Please call the Sullivans and ask them to quit flying the helicopter over Rancho Goleta Mobile Home Park. If you think this is acceptable, have them fly.
So we don't own a helicopter. Joel, who's now a CFII for helicopters, would love to have one, but it's not ours. So this is just a few samplings of what we've been getting. So again, I bring that out to the general public. If you want to come and talk to me, I'm the person who owns Above All Aviation. My employees do not deserve to be harassed by whomever is doing this. My phone number is 805-455-9565. Give me a call unknown and I'll help you out. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. All right. Seeing no other speaker slips at this time, we'll move to liaison reports. Looks like Mr. Caston or Councilman Caston. Update from Goleta.
All is well in Goleta, other than, over Rancho Goleta, apparently. But no news.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to number 5. Director Hastert.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. I just have a couple of items for tonight. I guess more than a couple. On your desk dais there, there's a little flyer Dolores Johnson is organizing what started off more of an airport day. It's becoming a little bit more of youth in education and interest in aviation day. It'll be on, I just blanked in my head, June 7th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. She is still looking for volunteers, especially those of you that may have airport badges, as that makes it a little bit easier. And if anybody has any other questions or interest, I can provide Dolores' information to you. Just let me know. But it looks to be a good event, free for all students, regardless of age. And eventually she would like to grow this into the future for a larger aviation day for just the general public and having better static displays. She will have some static displays of both cars and airplanes. I'm not sure what the list is, but I've heard that some of them are fun and decent to look at. So if you have any questions, I can put you in touch with Dolores. I think all of you may have heard. If not, hopefully I'm not surprising you, but Angie Doss, our marketing supervisor, has taken a new position in Asheville, North Carolina. So we are actively currently recruiting with an internal recruitment promotional opportunity for that position. Did that close today? Closed today. So hopefully we'll have some good applicants and look to move forward with that. Construction update. So we have Granite Construction out on the field doing a lot of pavement work. So a lot of taxiway rehabilitation. The biggest impact is going to be to the terminal in July. We will be closing down gates 1 and 2 for 5 days, I believe it is. So we've been doing a lot of coordination with all of the airlines, corporate and local. Don't anticipate any major issues, but there will be it'll be a little bit busy around the terminal with moving aircraft around in the morning potentially. But I just wanted to give you that update. If you see a lot of trucks coming in and out with asphalt or grinders or whatever it may be, that is a big federally funded project with Granite Construction. Just a very quick update on the General Western Aero hangars. I know we still have a lot of people in the community that are very interested in the General Western Aero hangars. Movement is slow, unfortunately, but it has not fallen off of our list of projects. Our main focus right now, obviously, is with the FBO redevelopment RFP, and we're very close to getting that out. But in the meantime, we don't want the hangars to fall apart more than they currently are. So we're entering into a professional services agreement with a local architectural firm to give us a scope of work for a very small project to shore up some areas of the hangars so that they don't deteriorate further. We do have one beam that seems to be slowly sinking a little bit, so we want to get to that before it gets worse so that even though we're a little bit delayed, we're still going to make some efforts to preserve them. And the last thing I will mention is we had our April Airport Noise Working Group meeting, and a part of that meeting was a presentation and discussion with a consultant who designs and evaluates approaches and departures, and we are moving forward with trying to finalize an agreement with that firm to developed 2 new approaches, or potentially more, depends on how it goes, but at least 2 different approaches into the airport for each end of runway 7 or 25 with GPS technology that hopefully will benefit not only the noise impact that we have here at the airport, but also for the pilots and everybody flying into here. To have 2 very good approaches will hopefully create less diversions, less go-arounds, which also generate noise. So very optimistic that will be a good thing for the airport moving forward. And that's all I have.
Commissioners, any questions?
On the airport noise abatement, my understanding is the FAA is really not moving on our other idea of using the existing approaches at Turnout to Sea. Have we had any movement from them?
Sorry, I'm getting disturbed by our own SOC, so something's going on out there. John, you can let me know if I need to pay attention. So we had a recommendation to request that the airlines use 2 different departures that aren't typically used by the airlines in the morning. We did make that request of the airlines. We got some early pushback that said it is creating some issues with LA Center and their automation. And so they politely asked us to rescind that request to the airlines. So we did. We are currently doing a dual approach into looking at moving forward with that. One is just on our own. I have some very good contacts at LA Center now, and so we're having some back and forth communications. but also in the scope of work for the consultant that we're bringing on. They have some people on staff that interact with the FAA on a regular basis and understand some of the complexities that have to do with how the different departures factor into the airspace for the region. And so if we're not able to work it out on our own, that is also part of the scope of this contract, is to assist us with that process as well.
Thank you for the update.
Could I also ask on the same question? So I guess they're both timing questions, really. That when is there a sense of when we'll know whether the FAA or the LA control is going to find our entreaties successful, adequate, and then second, how long is that second process, the one where we use the consultant? What's the time frame on that?
So, Councilmember President, I don't have a good understanding for the what would have to happen for the complexities with the departures that we've requested. I'm learning more about that as we go. I would hope that that's a short-term issue, but I'm learning more about it as we go. And then, like I said, if we need the help of the consultant, I think we will have enough weight and enough expertise to be able to make a fairly quick adjustment. If I were to just put a pin on a calendar for when I would expect to have it done by, if we have to use the consultant, I would hope that we could get that hopefully within the next 6 months, but maybe sooner.
So when you say that, you're talking about asking the consultant to not the broader study, but to direct his or her attention to the particular kind of low-hanging fruit that we were working on to figure out how to integrate it with LA Control and their processes and so forth, so to make the low-hanging fruit kind of thing more acceptable. Is that?
That's correct. And so there are, and I don't know the extent of it, there are certain automations that they call it that they have to update within their system. And I don't know how easy that is or isn't to update. So that's why I'm just putting a rough guess out there at the 6 months. For the approach study, we could have, working with the noise working group and doing some community outreach, we could have some new approaches developed for the airport and ready to go in less than a year. At that point, we have to make an evaluation as to whether we turn to the FAA to look to have those published and see what that timeline is, or whether we move forward with an additional cost, unfortunately, to do that as the airport. And so that will be coming back to the commission at a future point. So I would say for the approaches, it's depending on FAA and other things, with spending some money, roughly a year. Without spending that additional money and relying on the FAA, a year to 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Nope. All right, seeing none. Any speaker, I don't have any speaker request forms. Any questions from the audience today? No? All right. Moving on to the consent calendar. Commissioners, I assume you've had a chance to review. Are there any questions or concerns with the consent calendar today? No? I'll just ask one to make sure. I know there's a couple leases here, just to make sure I ask the same question every single time. But all of these leases are within the same realm that we've previously approved for a per square footage and everything. So we're looking good there.
Yes, they are.
Fantastic. All right. No other questions? Going. All right, very good. Any speaker, no speaker forums, but any public comment at this point? Nope. Okay. Moving forward, I need to call for a vote here. So all in favor? Oops, sorry.
We would need a motion in a second first.
A motion in a second.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
That's presented. Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you both. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Looks like it's unanimous. All right. At this point, we'll call on Director Haster to introduce item number 11.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. I'm actually going to turn it over to Jonathan Abad, and he's going to go through the presentation for the airline rates and charges for fiscal year 2026, and I'll also be available if there's any questions.
Good evening.
Chair Glacier and members of the Airport Commission, Jonathan Abad, Business Manager. Tonight I'm presenting to you the fiscal 26 airline rates and charges. And this is the agenda is going to look like. I'm going to go through the introduction and some overview. Then the 26 proposed rates. I'm going to go over some capital updates. And this is the airline rates. They're based on airport recovery, cost recovery needs after subtracting non-airline revenues. And if revenues goes down or expenses goes up, airline rates typically increase to cover the gap. And during the pandemic, this would have meant a sharp increase in rates in the airlines, but federal relief funding allowed us to keep the rates through about fiscal 26 when it runs out. And here we have a snapshot of historical airline rates. As you can see, the terminal rates have increased, but less than the CPI. Landing rates and landing fees and boarding bridge fees actually have come down. And you see the CPE, the cost per enplanement for the airlines, is actually now lower than it's been before the pandemic. And since the COVID pandemic started in 2020, the airport received about $19 million total relief funding to help it through the mandated flight reductions. And there's the three different CARES, the Corona Response Grant, and the ARPA grant, totaling about $19 million. There's about $500,000 that kind of like a pass-through that went to the concessions. And here is how we ran the COVID grants through the rates on an annual basis. And as you can see, the last of it's going to be used in fiscal 26. So we worked real hard in keeping the cost per enplanement low to maintain the Santa Barbara SBA's competitive edge. Despite Santa Barbara's naturally higher operating costs and limited service availability. And COVID relief funds played a major role in keeping the rates stable through during the lowest passenger periods and peak inflation that followed. And these relief funds are expected to sustain the airlines again through 26. And by actively marketing SBA and managing expenses and collaborating closely with the airline partners, we've created a strong foundation for attracting new services and route expansion. So currently, we have 5 signatory airlines. We got United, Alaskan, American, Southwest, and Delta. Delta just started June of last year. Calendar year 2024 actually ended with another record passenger count. And as of January, we set another record, 11 consecutive months, longest consecutive months with over 100,000 passengers every month. And then here's a snapshot of that historical annualized passenger totals. Our previous peak was in February 2020 before the pandemic, and it was just over 1 million annualized passengers. Now we're over 1.3 million. And as you can see here, compared to the national average, the monthly airline seats at SBA continue to grow more rapidly than national average. We're in the dark blue, and the national average is the light blue there. And SBA passenger count also grew faster compared to other SoCal neighboring airports since the pandemic. We're in the light blue there, and everybody else is on the dark blue. And we do have some challenges, the airfield space constraint and the upcoming FBO changes. Passenger parking demand continue to soar. Planning for terminal improvement and funding for the CIP with aging infrastructure and slim staffing and deferred maintenance needs. So for the rates, for 2026, we're proposing a 5% increase over the current airline rates. And this year, we've taken a negotiated approach to balance affordability for the airlines and long-term funding needs for the airport, rather than using the traditional cost recovery formula. These rates are lower than what the cost recovery would have required, but we're still supporting capital needs and remaining within the planned budget. And budgeted expenses for 26 is about 13.5% higher than last fiscal year's budget, which would have resulted in a higher than 5% airline rate increases on the cost recovery approach. And here are the key drivers of the rate increases. We have a significant increase in maintenance and operational expenses. They're driven by increased facilities and maintenance cost, increased utility rates and usage, and staffing requirements. Of course, we have the capital needs. We got the new parking, long-term parking, about $6 million. $2 million for administration building relocation, about $40 million in terminal improvement, and of course, ongoing increase in payment wear due to larger aircraft. And as far, capital projects, like I mentioned, we have the South Field Phase 2. That's a new long-term parking lot. Again, I just went over this, admin building, terminal improvement. And here, just kind of highlight the Southfield expansion, Phase 2, which is the parking expansion that we plan to start in fiscal 26. We have a map showing down in red where it's going to be. Phase 1 is right in the middle there in the blue. That's where we added some RON parking for planes and additional parking for rental cars, just to give you an idea what that looks like. Oh, sure. Oh. Got to mention that we will have a project with this project when it's completed. We project a net savings and additional revenue of about $1 million a year ongoing when it's completed. And that concludes my presentation for rates and charges, and I'll have to take your questions.
Commissioners? Paul?
Yeah, I had a question. When we're talking about the new rates move away from cost recovery formula,
Yes.
so my understanding is that we have our utilization rate on our terminal high enough that we can charge more but still be cheaper for the airlines. Now, if I'm reading this correct, we're going to be making money with our terminal to pay for capital improvements. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're striking a balance, keeping the rates low, and still funding enough for current and future capital needs. Yes.
We took a different approach this year because we normally would have done the calculation and gone back to the airlines with that recommended 13% increase. Mm-hmm. But we knew that we had some very short-term projects that were really increasing our costs, and that we had a very short payback term on those with that $1 million of net savings every year. And so in the contract, we are allowed to negotiate a rate. And so we settled on a 5% increase, which still helps to cover our costs with an increase, but is more palatable to the airline and doesn't have a wide range of ups and downs with our rates, to just kind of keep it stable over the next few years.
Yeah, I like it. And then a little history on this. Back when that terminal was being discussed, I was just a person in the audience, but one of our concerns was to get our utilization rate up to pay for the terminal, and now I'm seeing that we're not only paying for it, but we're making money to continue improvements, it sounds like. So very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Howden?
Yes, and more of a comment. Jonathan, I really appreciate your focus on affordability, because it is a competitive market. We have 12 municipal airports that compete with us for being able to say we have some of the most competitive rates in the state. And, you know, there's you can always talk the talk and you can walk the walk. But when you see Delta Airlines add a third flight into Santa Barbara to Salt Lake City, that's walking the walk. I mean, they're very fiscally responsible. And that second flight, it's been a month since I looked at this. Things could have changed, but I believe there's now a second flight at 11 a.m., or that 11 o'clock hour. That puts people from Santa Barbara in Salt Lake City with 90 minutes to transfer to Amsterdam, Schiphol Airport. That is a very competitive time frame, because even a direct flight from Los Angeles to Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam, is about 10 to 12 hours. We're right in there about 12 hours with the transfer in Salt Lake City. That's wonderful for the citizens of our community to have that kind of access to a major Northern European airport. And for those who like to hike, it means that you can take first or second flight to Salt Lake City, rent a car, and enjoy a sunset in one of 3 national parks there, Arches, Canyonlands, and Capitol Reef. Pretty cool, be able to leave Santa Barbara in the morning and be hiking in those 3 national parks in that afternoon or evening. So we keep it affordable. We'll continue to attract airlines to add an additional flight, or maybe we'll even get San Jose someday. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Piggybacking on Dennis's comments and more on the econ nerd side of me that goes into this, given the demand and the growth that we've seen in the demand, you carefully articulated the constraints that we have here. But if we ignored those constraints, do we have room to grow supply? Do you see us having any hurdles to getting additional supply online with larger aircraft or additional routes?
So I can speak a little bit to that, just being part of our air service development efforts. We do have now a peak in the morning and in the afternoons, but there's still plenty of other time within the schedule to add more capacity into the existing terminal without doing a terminal improvement project. That's why we call it the terminal improvement project, because it really does 2 things for us. One is it enhances the customer experience, because if you're in the Gate 5 area, say when all 4 positions are being used, it's very crowded with the larger aircraft. So we don't add any capacity with additional gates, but we have more seating area in there. And then also when we're doing construction projects like we are right now, and we have to take gates 1 and 2 out of service, I think that tells you right there we can still function with 2 less gates, but it really puts a strain on the airport, on our maintenance team, and on everybody to keep things running. So yes, we still have capacity in our existing terminal to add additional destinations or frequency to current destinations, but really what it impacts is the customer experience as that continues to grow.
And then secondarily, on slide 14, there's a line item here for allocated costs. Can you just give us a general idea of what all flows into that specific line item?
That's a good question. That's city services, 40 airports that we pay for, such as information technology, our fleet, sustainability, just overhead, general overhead that we pay the city.
So Jonathan can probably hit me if I hit the wrong areas, but we get a lot of support from finance, from our city attorney's office. So all of those go into those fees, and then also the vehicles that you see everything out there.
Any other questions?
I had a question. We've noticed for the city of Goleta, well, I guess my question is how significant, how large is your pavement budget?
So I can't answer that question very easily. I might be able to go through and find it somewhere in the budget. Pavement is our number 1 expense when it comes to our FAA grants. And so sometimes we put multiple years of grants together, but we've been, our most recent projects are each year in the $5 to $6 million range each year. And then we have several smaller projects for some of our roads that are, $150,000 to $300,000 each. But if I had to just put a guess on it as a number, $6-7-ish million a year.
Because that's more or less our range too for the city, and we've noticed that I've noticed that costs have dramatically increased, just astonishingly large. And I was curious if you've had the same.
Yeah, every project that we do has gone significantly up in price.
On pavement.
Pavement and everything else, but yes, pavement specifically.
Well, because the thing that I've noticed is that if you look at the rate of inflation related to construction projects, it's not as significant an increase as the increase we've seen on pavement. That pavement itself is much bigger, beyond just what would be expected from inflation costs.
Yeah, we have seen quite an increase, and then our aviation pavement is very different from roadway pavement. It's a much higher spec for thickness, for strength, a lot of issues. So they're very expensive pavements that we have out there.
Okay, well, thank you for now.
Any other questions, commissioners? I have no speaker slips. Any public comment? Given a 3 count, seeing none. Can I call for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal 26 airline rates and charges.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Looks like it's also unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item number 12, Director Hastrick.
So Jonathan Abad is on a roll, so I'm going to turn it over to him for the proposed 2-year operating and capital budget for fiscal years 26 and 27.
Hello again. With the 26 budget. And tonight we're going to go over this outline in this presentation. We got Airport Department overview, fiscal 26-27 budget, our capital program, and going to go over Airport Department core, which I'll explain later what that is. So the airport is considered enterprise fund, which we are self-supporting. We do not get any general fund subsidy. Our revenues come from tenant rents and user fees. Santa Barbara is a FAA certified airport, and we're regulated by the FAA and TSA. We have our own fire department, our aircraft rescue firefighting unit. We have our own maintenance and repair and our own police officers. And here we have our org chart. And we have 11 programs and 5 divisions, starting with the Administration and Business Program 7411. This makes up about 6 full-time equivalents position. That includes the airport director and myself, the business manager. Then followed by the Properties and Marketing Program, 7412, 3, and 14. That also includes the parking. That's headed by Mr. John Feldhans, our properties manager, and it includes about 6 total FTEs there. And Operations and Law Enforcement Program, 7431, 7441, that's headed by Operations Manager Mr. Michael Smith, includes about 43 FTEs. Facilities Maintenance Program, 7421, 22, 23, and 24. That's headed by Mr. Andrew Bermond, who is our facilities manager, and he has about 25 FTEs. And then we have a capital support team headed by Mrs. Sarah Iza with 2 FTEs. Also includes 3 full-time engineers provided to us by the Public Works Department. And here, another history of the passenger by fiscal year this time. So as you can see, since fiscal 23, count stabilized to about 3% annual increase into 24, then projected to spike up to about 8% increase into fiscal 25 due to the Delta joining recently. For fiscal 26, we're projecting back down to about a 3% increase. And okay, then we have, this is kind of like just a snapshot of the budget, which we have about 82. We're proposing about 82 positions, and let's see here, let's see, number 8. Okay. And which is an increase of about 9 full-time positions from last fiscal year. Large part of this, $713,000 increase you can see there on the salaries and benefits, is really from just 3 positions, as the other 6 are either already included in the budget or are offset with some savings and some budget reductions. I'll go over more of that later. 1.7 million increase in supplies and services. There are no proposed changes to fees such as parking and ground transportation this year. And one major effort is to start the long-term parking expansion that I mentioned earlier in the rates and charges. That'll replace the overflow lot and will save and generate about $1 million annually once completed. And we have a list of capital, which totals about $8.5 million this year. Now, changes to the budget are presented as adjustments, either increase or decrease. This is from the base. You can see the first 2 columns there would be the base 26-27 budget. It's essentially the adopted current fiscal 25 budget with some adjustments, approved adjustments, such as for salaries and benefits. We've had negotiations approved increases for salaries and benefits. That's all factored into the base. Also increases in allocated costs. That's already factored in that base. And then the 26-27 budget in the middle is what we're proposing. And the last 2 columns shows the difference from that base. And for revenues, as you can see, we're proposing about a $2.5 million increase from this fiscal year, and about $4.3 million increase. That's from this fiscal year the following year, and total revenues. And in the use of money and property, the majority of that are leases, and here I have it broken down to the 4 main lease groups, starting, and the way we do, we project for 26 to 27, we start with, updating a projection for 25 and layering increases there. So for commercial and industrial, it's actually a reduction to the base a little bit. It's driven by mixed growth and about 3.5% annually. We're also factored in, the new restaurant lease and maybe a little bit higher revenue for 27 from possibly repurposing overflow lot for additional revenue. Non-commercial aviation growth is about $438,000 from higher activities. Terminal leases, you'll see a pretty significant $2 million growth. That's primarily from the parking revenues increases and the rental car income. The parking alone is about $1.6 million of that increase. Again, that's driven by our updated projection in fiscal 25 that is coming in much higher than what we anticipate on the parking. And commercial aviation leases, major increases, about $500,000, driven by Delta landing fees and increase in airline rates and charges, the 5% increase. And here it is, looking at the 4 main leases as in a pie. You'll see the commercial aviation is about 24%, terminal is 38%, non-commercial aviation is 18%, and commercial aviation's commercial industrial is about 20%. Combined commercial aviation and terminal revenues, which is airline passenger driven, that's about 62% of our total lease revenues, compared to commercial, industrial, and non-commercial aviation combined is the other side of it is 38%. In the terminal revenues, I mentioned parking has become the airport's top revenue driver. In fiscal 19, we used to generate about $3.5 million in parking revenue. 27, we're projecting about $9 million. That growth is powered by record passenger volumes, modest rate and increases annually, recent upgrades to parking equipment and systems, and it's now our single largest source of operating revenue. And as demand grows continues to climb, it's clear that parking will play an even bigger role in our financial future, and that's why we're taking a close look at how to support and sustain this growth. Of the expenses, I mentioned earlier that we're increasing the positions by 9 full-time positions. This includes 2 overhire positions that we currently have in the budget that we're just making it authorized, part of the authorized full-time positions. And we also have added 4 security aides mid-year as overhires. And the cost of that, we're reducing the hourly salaries by about the same amount. We're kind of shifting our, it's hard to recruit and retain hourly employees. And so hoping that when we make them full-time, it's easier to recruit and we'll keep them longer. And so that remains the last 3 new positions, and some overtime cost is what's included in that $713,000 increase in salaries and benefits. And for supplies and services and equipment, about $1.7 million in increases, about $500,000 for airline routes and new marketing promotions, and about $1 million of the increase is for utility bills, repair, and maintenance costs. That's increased quite a bit. And about $200,000 in increased technology and security equipment upgrades. And budgeted operating surplus before capital is about $2.5 million in fiscal 26, and the following year it'll be up to $3 million. And below the line, we have the capital. This includes the parking lot in 26, which is a total about $8.5 million. It's a $5.5 million increase over the base budget. And then the following year, it'll drop down to less than $5 million. And looking at the pie on our expenses, you'll see salaries and benefits make up about 1/3 of the total, $13 million. The allocated cost here, I've combined the ARF, the firefighting, and the engineering. They're pretty much, they really should be considered as allocated costs we pay to the city. So that makes about 23% total cost, and it's about $9.5 million. And next, we have the capital, 23%. And then supplies and services, 18%. Everything else is pretty small there. Okay. And off to the other funds, we have the CFC, or the Customer Facility Fund. This is a $10 per contract fee collected for us by the rental cars to help fund for airport capital. It benefits the rental car companies. This is to fund half of the $5.8 million first phase of the Southfield redevelopment. It added about 60 parking spots for the rental cars, and to build some funding for future additions for more rental car parking. Right now, we estimate about $1 million annually from this revenue, and to reimburse, it reimburses the operating fund for, again, half of the Southfield Phase 1 development. And so far, we've received about $1.8 million towards that project of the $2.9 million that we're trying to capture for it. And then we also have the PFC, which is a Passenger Facility Charge Fund, and this is another airport fund, and this keeps track of the $4.50 passenger fee collected by the airlines and sent to the airport. At the end of fiscal 24, last year, there was about $6.9 million in this fund, and it's growing by about net $2 million annually at our current employment rate. and that's less the PFC portion of the current terminal's annual bond payment. Formal application is needed to be approved by the FAA to fund, to use this fund. And currently, we've submitted to use about 5.1 million of this accrued amount, 3.5 million to reimburse the operating fund reserves, and $1.5 million for a new ARF truck. And this is not on the budget at this point, but will be once we get approved. And it should come in the next month or two in fiscal 26. Okay, off to the capital programs. This is a list of our capital programs. Fiscal 26, you'll see a total $8.5 million and $4.9 million for fiscal 27. And again, a significant item on that fiscal 26 is that $5.8 million Southfield Phase 2. This adds about 400 parking spaces. Like I said before, hopefully the commissions the overflow lot for most part of the year at least, and being closer to terminal, the parking rates would be more than the overflow rates. It'll generate more revenues, and we won't need a costly shuttle program, at least outside of the busiest months. And like I said, this project is projected to help the operating fund by about $1 million annually from cost savings and revenues. Okay, now we have the Core 3. Now this stands for City Outcomes Reaching for Excellence. It's a performance measure performance measurement framework designed to align department goals with the city's long-term vision known as Vision 2030. And each department is expected to develop at least one goal under each of the 3 core pillars. The first pillar is thriving force, and this ensures the city is properly staffed, employees feel valued and engaged, and city becomes an employer of choice. And the second pillar is organizational optimization. It helps identify inefficiencies and delivering services in a quality, value-added manner, and prioritizing services based on community needs. And the third pillar is for innovation. It's intended to reduce barriers and improve service deliveries and embedding innovation into city's culture and gaining recognition for these efforts. Core 3 program provides a streamlined way to measure success and ensure that the city operations are aligned with strategic objectives and community priorities. And as part of the city's Core 3 initiatives, here's how the airport is aligning its efforts around the 3 key pillars. Starting with the thriving workforce. As you can see, we are committed to creating a fulfilling work environment by investing in employee training and communication, and by engaging tenants through satisfaction surveys. And for the next pillar of innovation section, we are focused on safety, efficiency, and modernizing operations. And this includes launching safety management systems, electrifying our fleet, and exploring business opportunities across aviation and non-aeronautical areas. And last, we have under the organizational optimization, we are prioritizing open governance and community trust through public meetings, improved noise response, transparent lease practices, and better communication tools like website, Everbridge systems. And these goals help guide our operations and ensure we continue delivering exceptional service as we grow. That concludes my budget presentation, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
I think I'd like to be the question leader tonight. Hopefully they're decent questions. Looking on the budget summary, we're talking about the Caneros Creek maintenance, $750K. I was curious, what are we doing on the creek?
So, as you know, we had some recent flooding events on the airport, and so we've put in some short-term fixes to hopefully prevent flooding, but the long-term fix is really to maintain Carneros Creek to the level that it was constructed to. And so we've had a lot of silt that's been deposited and other things. So basically this would be a project to, dredge is a strong word, but to clean up, dredge Carneros Creek to the conditions that it was constructed to.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was hoping it was for maintenance, not rather new cement or things like that. Well, I'm very glad we're working on that because, yes, we have a massive flooding problem here. So I'm glad to see that. I also had a question. We've got a very big change for supplies and services, and I was curious whether that's part of the driver for that is the new approaches for noise abatement.
So that is actually not a part of that supplies and services increase. We have to buy some additional equipment for security with some of our new TSA requirements. And then we even though they may not come to be, we actually have marketing incentives for new routes. And so just based on the opportunities that are out there, we put in, I think it was $500,000 potential for marketing for new routes if they develop. So if they don't develop, that's money that is not spent. And there was a third thing that was in there. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, we got about $500,000 towards the marketing that includes the routes, and also about $1 million of that is for facilities. Half of it's about increases in the utilities, and the other half is just increases in cost and repair, rental, and just the ongoing maintenance of the whole facilities at the airport.
Okay, well, this was supplies and services, so I was...
Yeah,
okay.
There's a lot of services like rental of equipments and all the supplies that's needed to maintain.
So as just for an example, like as we do a project on the main hangars, the supplies and services that come out of that would be the crane rental and things like that.
Got it. And then you mentioned $500,000 to try to get new routes then, right?
So it's not to try to get new routes. It's only money that is spent if we get new routes. So this would be the incentives that we commit to the airlines if they have a new route. So if we don't get a new route, that money is not spent. If we do get a new route, there are marketing incentives that we commit to, as well as fee waivers. And so that's why you'll see in Jonathan's presentation the Delta landing fee going up. Initially, when Delta started the service, we waived the landing fees, but that is actually coming online now.
So that's showing up in this item.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for explaining that one. And then also, when we're talking about the budget for 26-27, I see $500,000 down there for the Western Aero hangars. Is that the stabilization that you were talking about?
So that is not. The stabilization will be a much less expensive project than that. We are looking at the future for the General Western Aero hangars. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we are putting into our program the amount of money that we would have spent should we demolish those hangars, because we will probably have some share of whatever that project is. So right now it's just an estimate of an amount that we might be able to contribute to that based on the expense that we would have if we actually demolish those hangars.
Very good on that one. And then my last question here, we're talking about the $1.2 million for what we used to call Taxiway H extension. So is that expected to finish up in 27?
That's the way
Bottom one?
B now.
So Jonathan might be able to help me out with exactly what the funds are for, but I can give you an update on the project itself. And so we're currently still in the environmental phase of that project, and we did have a very successful meeting with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to talk about jurisdiction and how that affects the project. And so the environmental and the finishing up the design is moving forward. I don't believe the $1.2 million covers the construction.
That is just the airport portion. It's grant funded, so that's just the 10% portion. So really the $10 million coming from the FAA on grants.
So that does cover the construction. And so yes, that would be for the completion of that. Is it Bravo now?
Yeah, it's Bravo.
Taxiway Bravo extension, excuse me, what used to be referred to as the Taxiway Hotel extension. We're still pushing for FY27. It is still dependent on the finalization of that environmental review and the finalization of the design based on that environmental review.
I'd very much like to see that one get done. It's a huge safety improvement for our airport. That concludes all my questions. Jonathan, thank you for a good report.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
For the new jobs, have you already hired people for the new jobs that you created?
On some, like the security aides, they're already filled. Like I said, we've added them as an overhire this fiscal year. We're just proposing it to be authorized permanently in our position kind of control role.
There are 3 that are not yet filled that we are awaiting for approval of the budget, both from the commission and then ultimately from the city council. And that would be the 2 additional airport police officers and the assistant airport director.
Thanks.
Commissioner Houghton?
Yes, a comment first. I'm pleased to see $500,000 in the 27 annual budget for the Western Aero hangars. So that's a first, if I recall. So it means that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I'm very pleased about that. And then I just am curious, with some of the irregular behavior out of Washington, do we face the possibility of having some significant reductions in our grants? Have we thought? Is this under consideration?
So Commissioner Houghton, we continue to monitor everything that's going on at the federal level. I will say that just in the recent news and recent discussions, our airport improvement program seems to be very well supported from all sides. And so I don't anticipate any reductions there. One of the funding mechanisms that we currently have is the bipartisan infrastructure law, which I think they just changed the name of that, but I don't know what the name of it is now. That is likely to phase out. There is still the hope that that might be renewed for future years, but we have been planning for that phase out all along. So as it currently exists, the only thing that is really unknown, unless there's some major changes, is we did receive some reimbursement for law enforcement officers for our TSA requirements. That went away, and we're hopeful that that will actually come back in the budget. It is seems to be supported to come back. There was one other small one, but it's nothing significant.
Right. Thank you.
Dennis and I must be on the same wavelength because I'm on the revenue side of the questions too tonight. So this one's probably more for John. Have you seen any softness in the C&I side of the revenue from the leases or the terminal tenants in particular?
Not really. It's been pretty strong, so I don't see any reductions or anything.
That's great. And then I know several of our leases, many of our leases pertaining to the terminal have different language in them regarding percentage of revenue for restaurants, et cetera. With our record-breaking passenger counts, how has that tracked to budget, and how does that look at this point?
So we are currently actually going through getting a new lease for the gift shop. So that'll kind of that'll give us a template to kind of go off of for our concessions, and I think that'll kind of try to even out what we do for concessions for sure.
Okay.
John, if you want to add the discussions we're having with the restaurant as well, because we do have the demand.
Oh, yes. So one of the things that we're talking with First Class is they've been extremely busy with a line going out their little door down the hallway. So we're actually looking at adding more seating on the window side. It'll add, I think, 22 more seats. It'll kind of cut back, hopefully, on that line, get us some more revenue from their lease too. So that's coming. I actually got to talk to Chris hopefully after this about it. But I think that's going to move forward pretty quickly.
But I think that shows that it's still very strong, and if we have room for more, they're able to fill that gap.
I think that's great. A couple of times that I've been there and had breakfast, it's the rising tide theory. If they're busy, we're doing well, and everybody kind of benefits as a community. So that's great to see. Thank you.
And also, you mentioned the restaurants and all that, but our rental cars are also based on a percentage, and as Jonathan mentioned earlier, those are significantly higher as well.
Great. That's great. Any other questions? Nope. No speaker slips. Any public comment? All right. Seeing none at this time, can I get a call for, or can I get a motion to approve?
I think we have to vote on this, don't we?
For,
Oh, I'll second.
Do we need to
Do we
vote
have a
on the capital budget?
that's what we're voting on, yes, sorry. On the 2-year operating and capital budget for fiscal years 2026 and 2027. Sorry, can we do that again? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
And we'll second that.
I think he beat you to it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? No. All right, unanimous. Thank you very much, and we stand adjourned. Thank you guys very much for all your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.